Good morning and welcome back. We hope you are ready to cover Neptune, a last planetary review in our 8th celestial probe. The course isn't over as there are other things to cover in Interstellar Observatory number 7, so come along with us now.
8th celestial probe. Neptune, a last planet review. From Germany, an astronomer named Johann Gottfried Galle first identified, assisted by Heinrick Louis d'Arrest and directed by Urbain Le Verrier, the then in 1846 new planet of Neptune. Awarded a Doctor of Philosophy in 1745 and sending his thesis to Urbain Le Verrier, Galle wouldn't receive a response until the next year on the 23rd of September, but the response was worth the wait. Before the famous letter in response, Le Verrier, working at the Paris Observatory, presented in 1839 on the secular variations of the orbits of the planets to the Académie des Sciences. The question we presented in the beginning of this work on the stability of our solar system as if it is somehow in a perfect harmonic balance was first raised by Peirre-Simon Laplace, a French polymath. Laplace's 5-volume work Méchanique Céleste summarized his predecessors and extended their work in 1799, where he translated classical geometry to calculus as the French Newton. Studying under Laplace at the Paris Observatory in 1793, Alexis Bouvard was first to hypothesize the existence of an 8th planet where compiling astronomical tables of the last 3 known planets at that time. Finding irregularities upon careful observations of Uranus movement, where from his observations Neptune's effect was subsequently posthumously discovered by Le Verrier. Dominique François Jean Arago calls Le Verrier the man who discovered a planet with the point of his pen. As Leibniz and Newton were at odds over calculus, so too had John Couch Adams, independently from Bouvard, arguably simultaneously discovered the planet. Deep in the dark abyss of outer space, Neptune is the 8th and last planet in our system, and while personified in the Roman counterpart of Greek's Poseidon, temples to him in Greek are more so reserved for Hera to Romans.
Hiding far deep in the dark abyss of outer space was found our 8th and final planet Neptune, not with the naked eye, but from the effect of its magnitude and context clues telling Bouvard and latter Le Verrier and Adams that something massive ought be there present. Recognized as one of the 72 names of French scientists on the Eiffel Tower, Le Verrier was accredited with the discovery. The furthest planet from the Sun, Neptune, though not called such at the time, in 1843 John Couch Adams at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich became just as interested in this then thought phenomena. As the only planet not initially grasped through empirical observation, mathematical calculations of celestial bodies' movements proved its existence before it could be recognized through optics. If we don't know what we are looking for, we'll never find it, and with Neptune a gas giant, the most dense and smaller than Uranus though more massive, its much further distance and slower speed would fool anyone who hadn't researched as much. With a mass 17 times that of Earth, Neptune is mostly gases and liquids without a stable defined surface, where due to distance every 164.8 years it orbits the Sun. When comparing aphelions and speed, Earth's is 94.5 million miles and right at 30 kilometers per second to Neptune's over 4.5 billion of the same distance and right over 5.5 kilometers of the same speed. The Earth runs circles around Neptune in agility, but this is not a race, as we simply characterize what's outside our atmosphere as best as we may. Bouvard's theory of gravitational perturbation was calculated to within 1 degree and 12 degrees for Le Verrier and Adams respectively, but as usual one was French and the other English, and the Royal Observatory used Newtonian calculus while the Berlin Observatory was more so Leibnizian. Uranus had only been identified as a planetary body in 1781, but it distinguished English more so as Olympians prove they, perhaps, may not be the best forever, but in the then on that stage they were the best physical examples of how one from their country looks competing against the best on Earth.
Neptune is personified in the Roman counterpart of Greek's Poseidon. Jupiter, however, in no way is superior to Neptune except on land, as neither is he in Tartaros to Arcus superlative. It is just from our perspectives where at sea Neptune reigns supreme. The planet has 14 satellites in its ring system appropriately named after water deities. Triton, its largest, was found only 17 days after Neptune's sighting. It is by far the largest, whereby all but 0.5% of other orbiting bodies make up the other 13 satellites. Though the only one large enough to be spherical, Triton, with the retrograde orbit indicating it was captured by Neptune's atmosphere, is an irregular satellite. The second moon discovered, Nereid, is the planet's third largest, orbits Neptune the opposite it spins, whose aphelion is just under 7.4 times its perihelion, indicating it might be also in Kuiper's belt. With Voyager 2 the others were uncovered in the depths of space and time, for what purpose only the Lord knows, while Scientologists may not understand. Proteus, Naiad, Thalassa, Despina, Galatea, Larissa, Hippocamp wasn't found until 2013. A trans-Neptunian dwarf planet, Arcus, has its own moon quite large named Vanth, where in the depths of outer space just of oceans deep, Neptune, as Jupiter does on land, rules men of the sea.
The 8th celestial body, and while personified in the Roman counterpart of Greek's Poseidon, temples stood in his honor in Greece while promoting Hera in Rome, but Atlantis is neither here nor there. The Cyclopes, after Zeus released them from Tartarus, Neptune's trident was forged to assist Olympians in the Titanomachy. Aside from Atlantis, in Greece many men were dependent on the sea where Poseidon was king and to which temples were built to honor him. of Doric columns, marking a transition in architecture from the Iron Age. Around 700 BC, the Temple of Isthmia on the Isthmus of Corinth and at Cape Saunion around the same time were built. On the island of Caloria in the Peloponnese, the Amphictyony reserved at Imenos for his worshippers, and at Tainaran a cave temple had his statue mark the entrance. But what of Neptune? In Colonna Regina, Taranto, and Paestum attributed to him were temples more so for Hera, or should we say Juno?
Neptune is our last planet, and while personified in the Greeks, Poseidon temples in Greece to him in Rome were attributed to Hera. Tridents symbolize husbandry. The discoverer, the world may never know, but the Newton or Leibniz calculus debate may never be resolved either.
That concludes the information we have at this time. Next session, though no longer categorized as a planet, Pluto is still a significant character in our system, so we will cover Pluto's celestial bodies report. See you then. Thank you for your time and consideration.